I think when we talk about creating accountability, it's not a simple thing. It's not one or two little things. It's some big focus things that are important. And I think if you miss some of the key things that have to be done in your company, creating accountability becomes virtually impossible. And then there's probably also some habits that we create within ourselves and within our staff that also makes creating accountability a difficult thing. So first, I think it's really important that we set goals for our company. We know what it is that our company should do. And of course, we have other tips and other classes for that. You know, the basic math around, why should my company do $1.8 million in sales this year and $1.8 million in productivity? And we need to know what that is, because then we need to be able to sit down and talk with our staff and create goals and targets. And goals are, what do we want to do, what do we want to accomplish, and what do we want them to accomplish within their position. For instance, if I have a technician who works for me and we pay them, let's say we pay them an hourly or salaried position, and we pay them X number of dollars, and they work 40 hours each week, and they don't produce 40 hours of billable work that I can bill, then I have a problem, and my company is not going to be as financially prosperous as we want it to be, which is going to affect just about everyone. It's not just about me, the owner, but it's also about I will not be able to give raises or pay those employees more money. And in fact, it may even hurt my customers because of the financial burden on the company. And I know when there's a financial burden on the company, it makes it difficult on everyone, including the customers that come into that business. So number one, I think I need to understand my business financially, and I need to know what the targets are. And then I need to set those goals for my company. And then I need to communicate with my staff. Hey, Mr. Service Advisor, Mrs. Service Advisor, here's what I need you to do for me. Can you do that? Will you do that? And in a sense, if I want them to really be accountable and I want them to really be able to be managed, I need to get their agreement that they agree that the goal, the task is a reasonable task, and that they're willing to and they believe they're able to get the job done. Now, we may prove that wrong later, but frankly, in most cases, I think if we can get their okay, their yes, I think I can do that job and I'm willing to give it a shot, then most likely we're going to get the job done and we'll be able to hold people accountable. Now, here's one of the things I think that is a bit of an issue in most businesses, and it's a communication problem that leads to making people not accountable. In fact, it leads to making accountability virtually non-existent, where you can't have it done. And that is having a clear understanding of what's expected of the person in the position. If you can't create a clear understanding, either with them or, with them, period, you need a clear understanding that this is what you expect and that you believe it to be reasonable and they believe it to be reasonable, and you need to agree on that. And my recommendation would be that it get written down somewhere so that when we want to do our follow-up, which is an important part of accountability, then we're able to do our follow-up and we're able to meet with that person later and say, okay, either you did the job, great, here's a pat on the back, here's a bonus, whatever that is, here's a reward, or you didn't do the job, why not, and what's holding you back from doing the job. When I was running the shops, in my mind, I always saw myself as kind of a person that took hurdles out of the way of my runners. So I was kind of going in front of them and removing hurdles or helping them remove the hurdles. And I think that's something that we need to be doing routinely, whether we're creating accountability or not. I need that employee to get a certain standard done, a certain amount of work, hit and achieve a certain goal, or I don't hit my targets and the company doesn't make the money that it should, and I don't get what I want out of this situation. So we've taken the class or watched the video or whatever, and we really understand what our company should be doing, because we know that based on the number of technicians we have and what our hourly rate is and everything, that there's a financial number that the company should be doing. We also know that a technician, all things aside, if everything was right, should be able to do at least 40 hours of work in a 40-hour work week if we're pricing correct, if we have the clients, if we have the parts, etc., meaning all things, again, are correct and in play. Another piece of the pie, so we've got the goals. We sat down and we spoke with our employee about the goals. The employee understands what they are. Another piece of the pie is creating kind of a minimum performance standard. Now, I do this for each position because it helps me as a manager determine when I can no longer tolerate that employee in that position. If you can't meet the minimum standard, and my minimum standard in my shop for my technicians, if I can remember right, it's been a while, was 7.5 hours a day worth of production. If you couldn't meet the minimum standard based on what our shop did, where all of our other technicians were meeting a standard of 120%, then you probably couldn't take up that space. You didn't fit in the company. Assuming that I had spoke with you and helped you recognize the things that were holding you back. So I create minimum standards in every position, because if you cannot meet that minimum standard, it draws to my attention the fact that either A, I need to help you overcome whatever challenges you have, or B, I need to replace you with someone that can and will do the job correctly. Now, I understand that it is difficult to find good employees, so what I'm telling you about creating accountability and about setting goals and understanding your business and managing things will make the employees that you have better employees, and actually it will make them happier and keep them there longer. And in fact, you shouldn't have to replace somebody if you do the job correctly. I need to have regular communication as a part of this. So I don't just one time say, here's the goal. I later go back, a week later and say, okay, how are you doing? Are you achieving that goal? And certainly if the employee isn't achieving the goal, then I absolutely have to have a conversation. And usually there's two conversations. One is, oh my gosh, you've done a great job. Thank you very much. Now what's the next goal or target? Or it is, man, you're not getting it done. How come? Now that's not you're a bad guy or it's all your fault kind of a conversation, because many times the employee is not able to get their job done, not because of anything they're doing, but because the company doesn't have the right systems and processes. When you think of the complicated game that is business, having the ability to bring enough cars in, marketing, having the ability to charge enough, sales skills, having a complete understanding of what the company should be doing, management, having employees that know and understand what they're supposed to be doing. Here we go with management and communication. Having the systems and processes within the business that allow the employee, that even help the employee to become productive or to get their job done and get their job done correctly. For instance, if a technician shows up at 8 o'clock in the morning but doesn't get a car dispatched until closer to 9, how do we expect that technician to be productive? If a technician, turns in a 4-hour job and we sell it for 2, how do I expect that technician to be productive? If we can't get the right parts in a timely fashion where the technician's bay is tied up, how do I expect that technician to be productive? If we pull them off constantly for waiters and waiter oil changes and pull them off of good jobs for that, how do I expect that technician to be productive? So it may not be the service advisor's fault that they're not selling. We might be bringing the wrong customers in. We may not have given them the tools. The shop might not look like it's worth what we're charging. And it may not be the technician's fault that they're not productive because we don't have the processes and the systems in place to make it so that they can be productive. So management comes in here and says what's wrong, hopefully recognizes what's wrong. When it's on management's side, I didn't bring enough cars, we don't have a good system or process, then it's up to management to fix those things. You cannot hold your people accountable for things they have no control over. And if you will not be held accountable on things that you only have the control over, then you're never going to have people that will be accountable people within your business. I think there's probably another couple of key things, and I'm going to wrap up. I mean, I could go on for days on this particular subject because it is really that vast. But what I wanted to do here is just give you some ideas and some focus. The next thing I think is be careful what culture you create. If you create a culture of blaming people, so I may have people in my company who are actually not doing their job and it's their fault, and I may have to pull them in my office and have a conversation about that. But I don't want to be discussing that with other employees. I don't really want other employees hearing me or seeing me. I really want that to be on the QT until I decide that either the employee improves their performance or I decide to replace the employee, and then of course everyone's going to find out. So be careful about blame. It's really interesting in my line of work. What I do a lot is go into shops and sit down with employers and employees, and it's funny, in so many shops they're blaming each other for the failure of the company. The service advisors are blaming the techs are blaming the service advisors and techs are blaming the owner's blaming the staff. This blame game that we get ourselves trapped into is something that absolutely removes accountability for everybody. How can I be accountable if it's not my fault? How can I be accountable if those darn technicians aren't productive? Or how can I be accountable for sales if the owner won't let me do what I need to do? That goes back to kind of the management and the communication piece. If I want to create accountability, I need people to understand exactly what it is that I want from them. And then, frankly, I am going to hold them accountable. I'm going to pull them into my office and I'm going to shut the door and we're going to have a conversation about why they're not hitting and achieving the targets and the goals. And again, I'm going to look at what obstacles are in their way, help them recognize them. When those obstacles are company obstacles that they don't have control over, then I'm going to try to fix those things. And when those obstacles are personal obstacles that they do have control over, then they're going to have to try to fix those things. I think there's probably one more major piece that we'll talk about here for just a second before we wrap this up. I think that you cannot allow bad behavior. And I know that in some automotive service businesses, you have an employee who's in the back and he's a great producer. I mean, he puts out 60, 65 hours a week, but he's just a terrible guy to get along with and he's mean to everybody. He doesn't follow the rules and the processes within the company. And when you allow that kind of bad behavior from somebody without any kind of, hey, let's get this fixed, that's a bad thing, and it gets in your way and it causes problems, and it actually shows other employees that it doesn't really matter. It actually shows them what really matters to you, and what really matters to you is that you put out 65 hours, and it doesn't matter if you're a prick or you're a nasty guy or you treat everybody like crap, as long as you put out 65 hours. I think what we want in our businesses is to have people that perform at a high level. For me, that was always about 120%. I think we want to have people that get along. I have rules in my company around it's got to be fun, and we've got to enjoy what we do. And if we have people in the company that we don't enjoy, then it won't be fun. Let's bring this back to accountability and kind of try to wrap this up. So I have my goals. I understand my business. I know my goals are legitimate. I've sat with my people and had conversations with them. They've accepted the challenges and the goals that we've set in front of them for themselves and for their position. They either hit the goal or they don't. I manage that, and by management, I measure the things that are important in my shop for technicians: productivity, comebacks, education, certification. Those are the things that I measure. For my service advisors, I like to measure sales. I like customer satisfaction, and I think margin becomes really important. So I measure the things that we're holding people accountable for. I have a good measurement that I can look at. I've had the conversation, they've agreed to it, and then I'm going to manage. And management is not, hey, you're fired because you're not doing the job. Management starts way before that in, here's what the job is, let me show you how the job is done. And then we kind of get out of their way, and what we do is we shift from being the kind of here's the guy, how you do everything, to being the kind of the coach. And the coach is a different role. The coach helps you understand things, helps you see things more clearly, helps you pull obstacles out of your way, helps you overcome challenges and figure out what to do. So, accountability. I got to have goals. I've got to have management. I've got to have communication with my people. And frankly, I got to be a nice person who they want to work for. And I can't have people working outside the rules within my company if I want to hold other people accountable. Now, I know we didn't cover the whole subject. I know that there's so much more that we could talk about. We certainly have classes, 2-day classes on this that we teach all the time. We would love to have you in one of those if this was interesting to you. Thank you so much for your time today, and hope you enjoyed the tip.
We hope you enjoyed this week's tip. For more information on the concepts we discussed, check out our upcoming classes at www.ifrabe.com/classes, or listen to the Leading Edge podcast at institutesleadingedge.podbean.com, where we discuss business topics just like this one with a panel of industry experts. You can also contact us whenever it's convenient, and we'll set up a free consultation on how the Institute can help you better your business, your life, and the industry as a whole. We'll see you guys next week.